Great. So here we are. I'm Michael Naylor, talking to you from South Portland, Maine, and I'm talking with a friend, a dear friend, Pami, who is on the other part of the planet in Amsterdam. And it's like we're in the same room together. I could just practically reach over and touch you. So anyway, and the conversation focus today is on the Type 7. And of course, the Type 7 is called the enthusiast, and they're known for having abundant positivity and vision and hope. And, sometimes they're really called the hope bringers. We know in different tragedies, hurricanes, etc., that a lot of times Type 7s are right there on the front lines. And so they have this quality of buoyancy, enthusiasm, and so that said, just hoping you would say a little bit about your experience with the Type 7.
So, so many things come to mind. I think just kind of moving from where we are now a little bit backwards is that with the COVID-19 situation that we all find ourselves in right now, it's now September 3rd, 2020. And I think, here it is, it's a crisis, certainly. And I think that I recognize that, I can view the facts of that, and then how I choose to be with those facts and the story that I tell myself around the world and my worldview is that I choose not to let my fear be what guides me. And so as a 7, I'm looking for lots of creative ways to, number one, recognize when I'm in my fear, and then how can I bring myself out of that fear? And one of the ways in which I do that is to become incredibly creative. This is not a time for me as a 7 to be bored. It's a time. I mean, like, give me something and let me play with it and let me just move it around and please, I don't need any feedback right now. It's okay, if there are mistakes and there aren't periods in my sentences and my grammar is not exactly correct. Grammarly will take care of that. Thank you. I've got all sorts of automated systems to take care of it. But I'm able to just feel free and allow myself to be free. And I think freedom is such an important value for me personally, but perhaps as a 7 also, that it's just free to flow, free to play, free to be. I guess, and also I guess on the other side of it, we talked about being really, really happy. I like to be free to be really pissed off. I like to be free to be mindful. I like the freedom to be really. When I'm sad, I want to feel free to feel the sadness, and to be with the sadness, and to live into the sadness. So for me, I think just if I were to wrap everything up in a bow, for me is that number one, life is an adventure. It's about how we choose to live it. There's a lot of stuff in the world. I've had lots of pain and lots of hurt and lots of harm and lots of death and lots of things that have happened in my 63 years on this planet. And at the same time, in order to survive that, I needed to make a decision for myself of whether or not I was going to sit and just be with the sadness forever and let it take over and embody my whole life, or be with the sadness, acknowledge the sadness, give it what it needs, serve it, and then I can place it and then step up and to live into my life in another way. And so Yeah, I think sevens have that ability, probably, and people don't understand that. It's like, how can you be, in such a, like, for an example, I'm a minister. So being at a life celebration, someone has passed away, and to be at a life celebration for someone, it can be a very serious and very sad occasion. And I think, it's important to be very mindful of those who I'm serving in regard to what their expectations are of celebrating the life of the person that that we're there to celebrate, and who has passed on and made their transition. But more often than not, what I find is like, we can start with the most serious and most somber way. And I've been in funeral homes and at grave sites and whatever. And somehow, people, I don't start it, but somehow people, start joking, and there's always like another seven in the room, I guess, that just, it's like, I can't hold on to this grief anymore. I've got to like tell this funny story. And because that's a part of their life too, and that's how I choose to remember them. And I think by being a seven minister, I have an opportunity to kind of be on all sides of the plane, and to be where and meet people with where they're at. So
Well, that's so beautifully put, and you hit a lot of powerful themes. I loved how you expressed uh, freedom, the freedom to grieve, the freedom to celebrate, the freedom to take life as an adventure. And so it's an interesting, sevens often will talk about their hunger and need for freedom. And, and, uh, and something that what I've appreciated with you is this idea about I've got the freedom to grieve as fully as I need to. And I can be with the darkness, and I have the freedom to do that. And when sevens are uh, less evolved and less healthy, there can be an aversion. Like if I start to feel the sadness, I'm going to get stuck here forever. But as they do in the work, I've obviously done a lot of it. There's a wisdom around. I can go into this and I can bring out the gifts of it, and then I can set it aside and move forward. And I think that's a beautiful balance, and to me is a reflection of a mature seven, and and I love also that sevens can find humor in the darkest place, and I think of Robin Williams, who could just sort of pull it out of the air, but also could be deeply serious, and so there's that's one of the jewels of I can feel the sadness, and then I can notice there's light here too. So um, life is an adventure. That's certainly the calling card. It's like if I had a business card for a seven, it's like,
mm-hmm.
life is an adventure. Do you want to join me? And so, yeah, beautiful optimism and balance too. So uh, that said, for you, how have you, I'm just curious how you have learned to be with sadness, because I know, some sevens will say, gosh, I can feel like I'm going to get trapped, but you've obviously learned how to really go into it and experience it. And was there something in particular that supported you in learning to bear with that long enough to pull out the gifts of sadness?
I think it's a really good question, Michael. I think the mindfulness work that I've done over the years, and really learning how to breathe first and pause, and to be present with the now, and to really assess the now with a 360 scope,
Mm.
has been really, really helpful. Um, prior, more immature,
Hmm.
me in an earlier time in my life, I would just, for an example, I'd be in a corporate meeting, and something would strike me to be funny, and I would just like burst out laughing, and it's like, and people like, what, like, and it was not appropriate, you know, it was not the appropriate setting for me to, I mean, it happened often. It wasn't like, and so, or I felt like I had to say something about, you know, someone said something, I'd always have to chime in, and I'd always have to say something about it. And now, you know, as I've matured and I've been with myself long enough, I find that if I just kind of sit with it for a minute and breathe and ask myself, do I really need to contribute right now? I mean, like, is that, you know, what's being called for, or is, you know, is it necessary? One, I have to tell you that it was not just like mindfulness practice, but moving to another country, you know, moving from the United States to the Netherlands, excuse me, has been in, you know, where people speak another, they speak English, but, you know, they speak Dutch naturally. And so you find, one finds themselves, I have found myself where, you know, I can't speak the language, so I have to, I have to shut up, you know, and so and I really have to listen really carefully to understand. It's getting easier, you know, of course, as time goes by, but I have to spend a lot of time really listening to, did they just ask me this, or did they ask me this? And how do I respond? And do I respond? Does it call for a response? Or is it okay if I just not respond, you know? And so I have to say, you know, it really has provided me with a great opportunity to just, yeah, pause.
Well, well, who knew? I mean, we're going to have to
I
send all the
know.
sevens to Amsterdam so they
Come
get
on
that.
over. We've got plenty of room here in Amsterdam.
I think there might be a lot of volunteers at this point. So
We're a
it's
very little country here, though, so,
only
and the
send two.
borders are closed. Sorry, can't come right now.
So it's interesting. I have a dear friend who's a seven, and it occurs to me at any moment when something's being said that he has like five rich ideas that he could share, and I can tell he's the image of the hummingbird sort of captures him, and they're often really wise and sharp and funny and you know, and if he speaks one of those sentences, there's a whole train of thought that just is ready
Mhm.
to just come through, and he just loves, and you know, he just loves to express it, and he his generosity with his enthusiasm. I love it, but some people will go, "Whoa, could you tamp it down?" Because and it's just that enthusiastic, vivacious. Oh, there's this idea, and I just want to share it. And so you know you sort of address that whole story about how I've learned to pause because there's this excitability, and I you know I've got these lovely ideas and the humor. You know, the thing that I can remember telling him, you know, a dear friend died, and I feel really sad about it. And he says, "Well, the good news is he's in a better place, don't you think?" And it's like always, "You're right, he is," and he's just like,
Well, we don't really know, but okay.
"One can only
Make a
hope."
lot of assumptions, yeah, right.
So,
Mm,
so there is this theme that I love about sevens is a kind of spontaneity when
yep.
they're really present, their ability to be spontaneous and enrich the moment. So what has been your experience of spontaneity?
Yeah, yeah, that's my middle name. And if you want to come, if you want any, you need an idea for anything, you need to brainstorm with anyone, just give me a call. You know, and people just, I should make money off of it. I don't know how to do that. One day I'll figure it out, but because people have really taken some of the ideas and gone and done wonderful things with them. So, you know, I'm grateful. I love, and I call it, instead of a hummingbird, but I love that metaphor. I call it seed planting.
Hmm.
And you know, it's
Hmm.
just, I'm always, it's like I and what I've learned, I think the younger immature seven in regard to all of this is just like, it's like, and I can understand why some people might feel this way as sevens, is that it's like, I've got this idea and I'm feeling called to share it with you, like as if it's a divine like whispering in an ear, that it has to be said at this moment, and if it's not said in this moment, this is the time, you know. And it's
Yeah,
and so from a younger perspective, that's, you know, that's what it felt. I mean, it literally
yeah,
felt, it felt that important. It wasn't even like, like it wasn't for me, it wasn't an egoic like,
Mhm,
oh,
mhm.
I have the most amazing ideas. It was more of like, I'm hearing these voices right now and I've got to tell you what's coming up for me so that
Yeah,
you can do something about it, because I don't know what to do with it, you know. And so that, and now I've learned how to, once again, like as time goes by and you realize not everyone appreciates that, is number one, it's to be able to, it's the pause and it's everything we spoke about before, but it's also asking permission. It's like, and I always bring a pad of paper with me as well if I'm going into a meeting, or if, you know, when I'm on my computer, I have my a notepad open so that I can just go ahead. If something's sparking for me, I can just type it so it doesn't get lost. It's that parking lot that we use in training and
yeah,
development all the time,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like, okay, it's there. We can get to it if we have time. If we don't have time, great. If any, you know, if I could share the ideas and if everybody wants to get together later, we could have a conversation. Then there's divine guidance, because you've been divinely guided to have that conversation.
yeah,
And, you know, I mean, the ultimate mastermind groups have worked in and through me in amazing ways, but it's, you have to really be, really have to honor it. And you have to make sure that people who are in the room are in the room to receive it, and they're willing to receive it, and they're in acceptance phase of it. You know, is this really the time to be playful,
mm,
once again, with the ideas? And so just asking, you know, I do that now and people really appreciate it, you know. So an example would be, oh, geez, you know, is anybody, are you guys open and receptive to some ideas, because I've got a flow of ideas that are going on in my head right now. It's like, oh
mm,
yeah, it would be great to hear them, but maybe a little bit later. And
yeah,
then it's like, okay, great, you know. And so that serves my need to be able to let people know there's something going on, what's going on in my head. And you know, I got it. My extroversion has gotten it out that I have something in my head that must
yeah,
come out somehow.
yeah,
So that, I think that's how I've worked in terms of
mm,
ideas and sharing of ideas and doing it in a much more homogeneous genius way, so that people can be really receptive to it, because people would interpret that behavior in a lot of very interesting ways that had, and I no, you know, wasn't, that's their worldview, right? So
yeah, yeah.
um
Well,
and it
that's
wasn't necessarily mine. So
yeah. Well, that's beautifully put, and I really appreciate that whole idea that it's like a storm of visionary, important ideas sort of enters my awareness, and it's like I, now it's immediate. Like, why would I waste time on this? It's right here, right now, and that sort of that push to let it come through. And I think you, as I hear it, it's like you've learned a way of being present with. Okay, there is all this juicy stuff. It's going to change your life, I think, but I want to see if anybody's receptive or present for this right now, because I don't want to waste it and I don't want to intrude with it, and so you've learned a quality of restraint and a way of taking care of yourself, which is okay. I'll let you know these could be the most important messages I've ever given to you, but I want to wait and see if you're ready for them. We'll put it in the parking lot, and it's a big cathedral over here that you might want to visit. Of course, I'm being facetious here. Uh,
oh,
but my dear friend Eric, he gets so excited, like right in the moment. This is the moment, and he'll start sharing in a seven fashion, which is spontaneous and animated, and people will sometimes start to sink into the chair. I'm going, Eric,
what do you do with all that? Here he comes. Oh boy, okay.
that's right. Get your umbrella up. I don't know. It's going to be a heavy rain here, but yeah, learning restraint and also the compassion around this isn't like an ego thing where I'm trying to, make myself better. It's just like these ideas have come and I want to share them. It's a generosity. And how do I work with that in a way that's skillful is what I hear. So that's awesome. I really appreciate that. So sometimes I go to another sort of section, seven, is that sometimes because sevens are so kind of, to me, it's like they look out on the landscape of life and they go, oh my God, there are so many possibilities here. I'm in this beautiful garden. How can I do all of them today, if possible. Like, there's no time like today. I could do 15 of them, right? So I wonder what you experience around that, seeing the beautiful potentiality of experience.
Mm. I like the metaphor of the garden, and for me, my metaphor I've used is the candy store. It's
Yeah,
just like life. I'm just feel like I've got to taste it all. And people look at my resume, and that was like the major problem with getting hired, is that people looked at my resume and said, "Who are you? Like, you've worked in construction, you've been a soldier, but you're a peace minister, but you're it's like all these contradictions and whatever." And so, of course, I've had to learn how to focus my message and to be able to do all of that.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so, like, living in Amsterdam, it was just, I came here for love. And there was no other better reason to do that. A lot of people have, they come here for their jobs, they come here for a lot of different, they love the city, yada, yada, yada. They love the Dutch people. There's lots of great reasons to be here. Um, but for me, it was just like love guided me. It was like orders from headquarters: follow your heart.
Mm,
And that there would be a whole other set of adventures that are here
mm,
to be able to be with. So, you know, it, and so it is. So I have, I ride a bike now. I don't drive a car anymore. I have a whole other lifestyle. I'm actually living into a lifestyle that I've espoused for years in the United States, that I could not live, and now I can live it. An example would be just living in a culture in which it is very and this goes right to the seven too. It's living in a culture that really celebrates being thrifty, being it's not being cheap, but it's playful. It's like you got to find the lowest price. Like, don't be in debt. Like, being in debt is a huge no-no in this society. And when I lived in the United States, and I was very prosperous. I'm very, very thankful for all of what I had. Had a lot of abundance. I'm very grateful for it. And at the same time, I allowed it to control my life,
mm,
and all of the things, and I allowed myself to get into a very heavy debt, and that the debt controlled my life. So it was like that, and it was the impulsivity of being impulsive as a seven. It's like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And living in a culture where it's just like, yeah, just pull out your credit card and you can have it. Well, what, live now. You could die any day. So not thinking that someone else may have to pick up the tab, but it's it's like,
yeah.
yeah, and so now, I mean, I'm so excited. I'm finally almost completely I'm talking extreme debt,
Mm,
and over $30,000
mhm,
worth of debt. And I'm almost completely paid off, and I'm like, and I can do that because I'm in a society where it's like I don't have to buy new clothes every season.
yeah,
I don't have to get my hair, done every moment. I don't have to have my nails done. I don't have to be coiffed in a certain way. You show up and you are who you are, and that's what's celebrated here. So that's a part of the culture as well. It's like, if you buy something for full price, you're crazy. Are you out of your mind? Like, did you not, like, look at least 12 websites and go, like, find out if you can get secondhand. I never would have bought anything secondhand in the United States. I know a lot of people do,
yeah.
but I lived I just, that wasn't a part of who I was at the time.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
for whatever reason, I haven't really flake that out. But here, and I still haven't bought anything secondhand, but I could, and I would if I could, So, it's like, yay, like, let's go meet at before COVID, there was, open air markets in Amsterdam was lots of Moroccans and lots of Turkish people and lots of just beautiful open air markets, year round. It's so cool. And yeah, I mean, like, so.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what
that's the candy store, right? It's just,
yeah, it's like awesome.
And
And
yeah, I hate shopping, but I like,
like seeing what's out there, right?
Right, right.
Well, one of the things that I found stunning, I was there in Amsterdam about a year and a half ago, and I noticed that that the bikers, everybody on bikes, right? And I noticed it was like watching near-death kamikaze bike riders cutting and missing each other by an inch, but not even like batting an eye, like
Right.
right. And then there'd be motorcycles who would come on the path also, and like people had developed such an intuitive awareness around not colliding. I mean, I watched for half an hour and said, oh, there's 35 times they missed each other by an inch and they didn't even bat an eye. And then some guy'd be coming
Right.
down on their smartphone, texting and writing at the same time and doing the weaving in and out. I said that he must have learned that when he was 4, 5, and 6. The guy's got training, right? So there's sort of a spirit of Amsterdam that, all these varieties of people and different bikes and clothing and culture. It was really, really quite juicy. I mean, I could see where, Sevens could have a field day there. So, yeah. So that said, you've hit on a couple things. I was looking at the levels of health that Riso Hudson developed. They say level 1 is the ecstatic appreciator, and the thing I've noticed about one of the sevens in my life, it's like each moment there's a potential for ecstasy here right now in this moment as I'm sitting in this chair talking to you. What you'll say something like at 7 in the morning at a crack of dawn AA meeting. What an awesome day. I've been up since 3. I walked an hour on the streets of Portland. Nobody was there except there was a good, Fred's always there. But oh my God, it's amazing to be here. And I'm not quite up there yet. I'm still I'm waking up and it's an average day and it looks a little bit hopeless. I don't know, that cheers me up, right? So, but this kind of, sometimes we say that they are imbued with causeless joy. There's this quality of joy that they seem to access more easily than all the other types. And any of that resonate for you? That quality
Oh
of
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It does drive people crazy who don't live that life, but because they view it as in the Netherlands, they say do normal, because because they see Americans as like, yay, and that's me. I'm like way over the top there. It's like, how are you? How the ciao, and it's like, what?
oh
And so I have to, I've tempered my demeanor a little bit just so that people could be more receptive to me being in the room. But I think, when I was listening to you speak, what was coming up for me, it is me being very conscious and aware of the choice that I make in the morning to wake up with an attitude of gratitude. I mean, I too wake up and I'm like, I've had one of those dreams, or, I didn't get a lot of sleep, or whatever that is, of why we wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Because it happens, we're human. But it's about the moment that I am awake enough and aware enough, I become conscious enough to know that I can just take a breath and just say, thank you, wow, I get to live another day. It's like it's such a short period of time.
yeah,
My original background was in the sciences. I think I've studied, once again, in the candy store, I've studied every ology. One is not enough. I've studied every ology
yeah,
in the book. And what I love about this, doing that is that you really recognize the physicality and where we are in the plane of the cosmic whatever. It's like
Mm.
when we talk about cosmology and we talk about spirituality, some people can think it's really woo-woo, but it's like it's very scientific.
It is.
If you just really, if you can give yourself permission to go there and to
Mm.
just and to know that, so resonating and really understanding that really what we're here about, so it's like this logical, I have this logical perspective that I can also be playful with, because I, once again, it's my choice about
Mm.
how I show up in the
Mm.
world around that. But it's only like, God, we none of us know right now if we'll go out and someone will cough on us, and that's the end of our days in about 2 weeks. I mean, it's just that's how it's happening. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
I plan so far in advance now and get things done so far in advance so that just in case
Hmm.
something happens,
Yeah.
I don't have to, I would hate for someone to be relying on some of my work, and I had waited to the last minute to get it done when it could have been done months ago, and then when they're ready to use it, it's there. It's
Yeah.
an interesting thing. But it really, to answer your question, come back to your question, and to focus on that, is that, yeah, it's about waking up, it's about being really conscious and aware of, just with that attitude of gratitude, I
Mm.
get to do this. And then just kind of like, how am I going to approach this today? And these are all the things that are on my list. Some things I don't like to do, some things I like to do. It all needs to get done. That's the big thing for a 7.
Mm.
I do need to be very organized. If I'm
Yeah.
not organized, it will take over. And so, I could have just, yeah, I'm on that great big sugar high eating out of the candy store, and I forget where I am and what I'm doing and
Yeah.
why I'm there in the first place.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really important for me to be, just
Yeah.
to kind of refocus, get connected. These are the
Mm.
things, this is what's going on, this is what needs to happen. And it
Mm.
only takes like a few minutes to revisit all of that. I have my list from the night before so that I can revisit it in the morning so it's fresh.
Oh,
So I've come up with different techniques to do
yeah.
that. Otherwise, I won't get anything done. I mean, that has been the number one, I think, complaint
Mhm.
about employers in my past, is that I'm a great director. I can tell other people what to do. I'm like the best director in the world. Like, listen, let me share my vision. I'll tell you some ways to be able to get it done. You need some support. I'm here for you. But for me to do things, is really, really, has been in the past very difficult. And I've had to learn that. I've had to
Mm.
really, really learn how to, be focused, to stay present, to
Yeah.
really, stay close to my list, and to really take it seriously, and to realize the benefits of doing that,
Mm.
and
Mm.
to view it as a playing field, like my list is a playing field rather than a to-do list.
Yeah. Wow. What?
Like
Yeah.
if it's a have to list, like, no.
Not gonna happen.
Anything else is much more important than that list. But if it's the list, if it's like the game plan,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's.
so
I appreciate. I mean, it's like you. It's how you have that sort of capacity to reframe the territory. So I was thinking, of my friend type 7. He'll hear somebody say, "Oh, I have to work today," and he'll say, "No, you get to work. You get to
amen.
work, right?"
You bet. You bet.
Yeah, and that sort of turning the frame so that you see the opportunity, and you really just given such a beautiful teaching for 7s, because you mentioned, like, it's almost like I think you used the word, the high of the moment, the excitement of the moment can take me away from my focused plan, and I can get sort of swept away in this enthusiastic reverie that I'm having, and then track that, down the road, and then, the next day go, "Where's my list?" That's what I usually say, because I can't find my list. But there's where did it go? Well, I guess I'd do another one. I'm all right. How many lists have I done this week? 6. I lost all of them. How's that happen? But it sounds, that one of the things they often talk about with the sevens is how do I learn to um, restrain myself so I don't get scattered on all my ideas. And sometimes you say that in the beginning, that feels painful. It feels like I don't have all, I want the full freedom to, to fly, but then I don't get things done. And then there's the disappointment there and I don't get to have the joy of finishing things. And unless you're in that great position of being the lead person, sharing your vision and saying, go there, and there's that one over there, and all right, and I'll help you out. It sounds like an idyllic place to be at times for you. Um, so when you started learning to focus more, some sevens say if they start to experience boredom, they have kind of an aversion to it and have to learn how to be with it and relax into it so it doesn't deter them too often. I mean, sometimes boredom's legitimate and I just got to go and do what I do. But what's been your experience with sort of the encounter of boredom and compressing or restraining yourself a bit? Like, how have you felt that internally and how have you digested that?
Mm. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I could let it take me over, and just like, and become quite angry. I mean, like boredom it's like, how, I'm my, can't they see? I have so many other things like that,
Yeah.
they're making me like, really, I got to clean the toilets again. Are you kidding me? But
Oh, life
I
at
got to
the
do it
Zen
a
Mountain.
certain way. Yeah. So can't we just do it a little different this time or whatever? And sometimes sometimes that is the treat, right? It's doing things just a little bit differently, approaching it. It's how I approach it that tends to help the shift happen. So um, uh, I like what you said about your friend, and I can affirm that statements like I get to do this. I'm so grateful that I get this opportunity to do this and to have this income coming in and to be a part of whatever I'm a part of, and I created this for myself. If I don't like it and I don't want to be here anymore, I can make a decision to go someplace else. And yet I think the trick is to engage the wisdom capacity within myself to be able to see, to be able to make that critical thinking decision of like, okay, I'm bored. Okay, you're bored. You create something down the road that will really fulfill you, that you can
Mm,
look forward to, and get through this. So you get to do that.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like, so having treats. I For me it's I get to have a glass of wine on Friday, or something. I don't, if I drink, I used to have a bottle of wine every day, I mean, or two. I mean, it just, throw in a couple margaritas, and that's, it's sevens, I think, where most of us are at the bars, right? And um and and those were my younger years. That was my immature seven.
yeah.
That was what it was. And now it's just like, it doesn't serve me to be doing that. And there's so much I want to do in this candy store and this playland and this thing called life, that I don't want to be living it in a hangover. And this is a choice that I'm making for myself, but I get to have a glass of wonderful wine
Mm, mm,
on
yeah,
Friday to
yeah.
say, well done. And so, for me, that's enough for me to be able to kind of set it aside. And
Mm,
something that I really was concerned about having an alcohol problem for many, 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 many years, until, I now live with a partner who doesn't drink hardly at all. And once again, it's just more of a supportive environment where it's like, yeah, okay, like
mm,
that's not what we do.
yeah, yeah. Awesome,
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
so it's uh, to point to the excitability of the seven. The thing I notice about sevens in my life, there's excitability around new ideas. Like, ooh,
Mhm.
and I could just like their eyes light up. Ooh, I hadn't thought about that. Or so there's this kind of
That's the
beautiful,
happy place. That's the
yeah,
happy place.
yeah. There's like this beautiful curiosity, like wow.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that uh, we talk about is this idea that for the seven, when they develop more presence, that they have the capacity to intuitively notice which idea really is for me and supports my growth, and which is just another maybe awesome thing to do, but doesn't align with my path or my spirit. That becomes sometimes more refined because I have the natural ability to see, oh, there's 1,000 things today. And I know with my dear friend Eric, at any moment, if something doesn't work out, there's 7 other things that we could do today. There's like,
Sure, sure. Oh, that's so confusing to
yeah,
people. People are like, how can you be here and then go here?
yeah,
And there you are. I mean, like people don't, it's really, and if people don't see you as being authentic, I think. I find that a lot of people don't, they don't, it's a big piece in which people just don't trust, it's like,
yeah,
really, like how you just were telling me how sad you were about certain things, and now you're like all over the place about this really great idea, and you can't contain yourself. Like what? And it's like, well, yeah, I can be both. I can be with both.
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well,
So
I
this is
can
who I
turn,
this is who I am. Hang out, we'll have
yeah,
fun, but
yeah,
you're right. Prioritization is incredibly important.
mm,
Incredible, and so sticky notes. I'm surround. I've got sticky notes on my like literally like a computer program with sticky notes. I've got sticky notes, right in front of me right now. They're all over the place. And I can reorganize them. So it's like, okay, like, is this a time for me to be able to kind of move along to this? Because another thing that happens for me, and I don't know if this is a seventh thing or not. You tell me, is that and maybe I don't know, maybe it's my extroversion or maybe, anyway, here it is that I have while I have the ability to be with and operate at a very high visionary level and really see the forest, from the universe. When
mm,
I'm not just in the clouds, I'm on some star somewhere, in some
yeah,
other
yeah,
whatever
mm,
cosmos. But I have that ability to do that, and that's my happy place for sure. And
mm,
yet, once I start to go into, because I'm required for some of the work that I take on, if I want to really manifest what it is I'm visioning, is that I have to go really, really, really deep down into the forest. And not only am I amongst the trees, but I'm digging down into the earth and going, creating caves and things like that. And I can all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. Like, it's like I haven't eaten, I haven't gone to the bathroom,
mm-hmm,
I think I'm thirsty now, and and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I can just really
mm,
tunnel vision,
mm,
and I'm really afraid to come out of the cave, that
mm,
productivity cave, and
mm,
it's usually when I'm really creative,
mm.
and I'm just like, I'm moving things around, I'm really there, and it's just like, don't disturb me, because I'll just go right back to the happy place. And so and so in order for me to get things done,
Mm,
and really completely, and I can do it so quickly. I mean, everything just kind of aligns once I start to go into
mm,
that space. It's like this funnel, and I
mm,
can just do it. But don't take me out, because it's
mm.
really hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Really hard. The Pami back in the bottle.
Well, it's such a beautiful description, and can just feel your passion when you're going there, and the do not disturb signs. Don't risk your life here. Do not
Yeah,
disturb. I'll be out when I'm finished. Or
right.
yeah. So, and you mentioned a word that sometimes sevens really can feel hurt by, is this idea that people, because they don't understand where the seven's at, they can project this idea that they're shallow or surfacey. And I found sevens to be very sensitive to and to people, and to whether they're liked and cared for. And it's just that they're so they can change channels and occupy a new zone in the flash of light. It's like, and now I'm right here, and now I'm right here, and fully there, and now I'm in the sadness, and now I'm in the humor, and that kind of it's like a hyper speed attention that can be extraordinarily skillful. And for many people, it's like I can't even go to. Well, I don't know what planet you're on, but it's one that I'm not spinning on, and so there can be, a lot of projected stuff like, oh, that's shallow or that's not deep, or which I found just the opposite. But so I just noticed that because I find sevens to be deeply caring, and that's what's so interesting about Enneagram is if you begin to understand that each person inhabits a kind of different psychic structure, there's a little room for compassion, and less judgment and maybe curiosity, like. Tell me about what it's like to be a seven. I mean, that's what I really love about what you're sharing. Is so um, sevens will go. Thank you so much. You've clarified a lot of my suffering and misunderstanding, and I'm coming to Amsterdam to work with you. So anyway, any I guess unless you one of the things that comes up is when you're looking at the levels of health. And the first three levels, we have the free spirited optimist, which you have so beautifully modeled and embodied. And then and you pointed to this, we call level 3 of health the accomplished generalist. Like sevens, like become great at a lot of different things, and they can learn things really fast. Like
Yes.
even my angels weep as they notice how fast the sevens do things, and here I am plugging along trying to get it, and they make connections really fast. But I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your generalist life and different lives you've led.
Yes, that resume, right?
Yeah,
I think, and I just wanted to share what came up for me when I heard you sharing that. Oops, that's my. How does that sound? Is it okay?
yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great. I think for myself, and maybe this is the seven in me, is that I'm very systemic in the way that I view it. My worldview is very systemic. I mentioned this before. It's very 360.
Mm,
And so I think, when you can see more, and really open your eyes and visualize, I think that's where people can become more empathetic as a seven,
mm,
because you recognize that it's not just me, and it's not just me and you. It's not just me, you, and the family. It's just me. It's so much more, and so that can really. I think sevens can really take on and become. They can call themselves. I find many will say that they're highly sensitive. I'm a highly sensitive person. Like, well, we're all highly sensitive, but some of us are even probably more highly sensitive to our hypersensitivity. But I just wanted to say, so
mm,
from that point of view, from that 360 view, from that systemic view, um, that's, I think, how I have moved into the world. So for an example, when I started out in college, I studied every ology in the book. Now I have to tell you, my learning style is not to memorize. So
mm,
how do you study science and not be able to memorize?
yeah.
And so, you have to make decisions as a seven about, like, right now I'm going to memorize this. I memorized enough to pass my, I got my bachelor's degree finally, type of thing. After 7 years, it's like I had to taste everything
Oh,
in the science piece. I finally got my degree in biology and chemistry, and I worked as a marine biologist for years. I loved it,
mm,
but then, all of a sudden, my husband at the time, we were young, but he started a restaurant. We met in the restaurant business,
mm.
and he was struggling. And so, it was like, it wasn't a big leap for me to just say, hey, similar to me moving to Amsterdam, for the sake of love. I will give up my marine biology
Mhm.
career
Mhm.
for now, and I will help you with a restaurant because, this is important to you and I love you.
Mm.
And I know how, and I know, and I have something to offer. It wasn't like, oh, like I'll give everything I know and I'll let it go. I knew something about it. I knew I could help, and we did. We became a very successful restaurant. We're able to actually sell it. He became very ill, and we had to sell it. But thank you. A lot of people aren't able to sell their restaurants, and
Yeah.
this was actually during a 1986. When it was kind of a recession we were going into at the time,
Mhm.
and so so okay, now we sold the restaurant, now what? And I tried to once again, we're going into this recession, and I was applying for jobs and not getting anything, and I had always wanted to join the Coast Guard. And all of my, and it was more, I grew up in a sea town, Gloucester, Rockport area in Massachusetts.
Oh.
And so I always saw myself, I knew the recruiters for the Coast Guard, and I said, hey, like, I think it's time for me to sign up. And they said, great. And everybody was really excited. And I went down and I started filling out the paperwork, and they said, because I wanted to go to officer candidate school, and I had my degree, and I felt like I was able to do that. And they said, oh, oh, and I'm like, oh, what? And they said, oh, yeah, oh, you're 30. What was it? I was 29 and 6 months and 6 days or something, which was past the date that you could apply for officer candidate school
Oh,
in the Coast Guard. And
amazing.
I was, and I just said, oh, so here's something that was a lifetime
Yeah.
thought that I
Yeah.
would do it. And I went back. I was working at a local hospital part-time as a phlebotomist and a lab tech. And I was a helper. I wasn't a lab tech. And one of the lab technologists said, well, you should join the Army. You'll get free training that's how I got my training as a laboratory technician. It would be great with your background and everything. You should do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking this is a divine idea. Yeah, this is great. So I went and I joined the military. That was why I joined them. We needed money. My husband was not well
Mm.
physically, and somebody had to kind of hold up the fort.
Mm.
And so it's like, okay, so I joined the Army Reserve and went away and did my training, and I flunked gun, but they like me so much they kept me in to keep on trying. You throw a hand grenade really well, and you can sure stab someone with that bayonet, so we'll keep you. And boy, you're enthusiastic, you like people with it's gung ho. So somehow I talk, because you're supposed to get kicked out if you flunk gun, right?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah,
I
so
like
yeah,
you.
because you should, yeah, and there's a whole story about that. But so I stayed. So that was the beginning of. So it was like going from one thing to another without even like, yeah, okay, and and
Amazing.
and and I really was I was someone who I had been I was a hippie. Let me just put it on the table. I had been at Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant before they built it, and I got arrested. I was one of those people that
Yeah.
occupied Seabrook back then, and I was an anti-war person. I had lots of friends who were in Vietnam and got killed,
Mm.
and so there was a lot. I didn't like war, but I was being trained to kill. But I was like, it was like, nope. They didn't want me in the Coast Guard, so they took me in the Army, and here I am.
Wow. That's
And so I did
amazing.
that, and that was the beginning of my training and development career too. I helped people, I taught people how to be able to do things, and
Mm.
yeah. So that's just like one example. My resume looks more and more. I mean, like, you could just kind of be like, okay, and then you worked at Budget Rent a Car. What did you do at Budget? I rented cars. What? But then they gave me a promotion as the training manager. And then it's like, oh, like, so you're a health inspector, and you went to you inspected, like, what are they, bathhouses and strip clubs and Walt Disneyland.
You are an
Then
accomplished
they
gentleman.
promoted me to be the health educator. So what are you gonna do? You know,
Oh,
oh,
God.
your husband died. Your husband died. What are you gonna do? And it's like, well, I'm gonna grieve.
Hmm.
And I did, and I grieved. And then one day I said, nope, not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Oops, I had to get permission. He was from a Greek Italian family. I kind of had to, like, is it okay for me to not wear the black anymore? And, but,
Oh.
and immediately just, I had to shift and be
Hmm.
open and receptive for dating and playing and getting, it's been like many years, been like 12 years, AIDS had come in, that didn't,
Yeah.
didn't never had to worry about that before. And so,
Hmm.
I mean, some people would have viewed that as being very, like, I didn't go through a whole year of grieving, for an example, for the death. It was 10 months and six days or something. But it was, some people were really insulted by that.
Yeah.
But that was, for me as a 7, it's like I was complete. I was done.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Okay, so I'm not a widow anymore. I'm not holding on to that as part of what my identity and my ego
Yeah.
being. And so what do I want to be and where do I want to go? And
Hmm.
yeah. So, and
Well,
moving around the country with my second husband, wherever he got another job, there we go. He was probably a 7 too, if I reflect on it correctly.
yeah. Wow. Just beautiful, beautiful stories, which is also one of the gifts of the 7 is they're such beautiful storytellers and animated and just bring you into their excitability and they're rich. And you point to something which I think we often talk about in the Enneagram world is 7s are fast healers. Uh, sometimes sometimes too fast, but you know, but fast. They digest things quick. Like, okay, let's get moving. I did the sadness, and now it's time to move on. I've got what I need, and so there's a gift in that. If you were a Type 4, you would have built a cathedral to that suffering and gone there every day for maybe 5, 10 years, and then carry around a heavy backpack with your
Right.
husband's ashes.
I
Uh,
still have them.
oh, well, you probably shake them up and then sing. I don't know, but
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
well, look, I'd love to hear a bit about your work that you're doing because I saw there was an announcement on Facebook, and could you share a little bit about what's happening in your
Yeah,
world?
it's a great 7 example too. It's, in the middle of COVID-19. Um, you know, I, um, I have a contract, as you know, with Unity, Worldwide Spiritual Institute, but it's a contract. It's not a full-time job, and
Hmm.
and doing instructional design for them. And so that I'm grateful for that. It's
Mm.
boring. Well, it's just because it's the same thing. We've got it down, we've got it established, it's there, boom.
Yeah.
So that's the 7, being honest. The But COVID-19, I teach classes in person here at the yoga school. This is the background here, is part of the yoga school background.
Mm.
And this is and I love, love, love being with people in person. It's a lovely, lovely thing I do a lot of meditation,
Mhm.
teaching. I do teach Reiki. I teach, different types of techniques of self-development and
Mm.
personal development and
Mm.
emotional intelligence. And I have, a huge variety of classes that I teach at the yoga school and in other places as well.
Mm.
And so I had all of the content, all of the information that I've been doing in person, but now it's COVID-19 time. The yoga school's closed,
Yeah.
and it's the making of lemonade, out of lemons kind of thing. And
Hmm.
let's go. And
Mm.
and I said, I think what I need to do is I need to take all of this cool stuff and just put it into an online environment. It will always be there. I'd love to teach other people to be able to teach it.
Mm.
I'm getting to the place where I don't need to do it all. I'd love to help other people to
Mm.
use the the learning so that they can teach people too. So I wanted to create this academy, this online academy, um, for personal growth and development types of courses. It's really the primary background focus of it is conscious evolution. These
Mm.
are all courses in which people are able to, and they're all courses I took. This has
Yeah.
been my path. You get
Yeah.
to take my path, so
Yeah.
it's like, it's my legacy, it's my whatever, to the world, where I get to kind of share some of my
Mm.
learning along the way, my
Mm.
wisdom teachings,
Mm.
and take it, if you want to take it, here you are, and
Mm.
I enjoy it. There's nothing that I'd be more grateful for than for others to be able to learn by my mistakes, for others to be able to learn from my
Mm.
strengths, to
Mm.
be able to help people
Mm.
discover how to be able to recognize where they are and who they are in the world, so that they're able to make conscious decisions and live. I think, it's like making every choice matter is the motto of the
Mm.
school. It's like, it's really learning how to be able to recognize that you do have, you have the ability
Mm.
to make every choice matter in the midst of everything that's happening around you. You might, and understand your sphere of influence. What do you have control over and what you do not have control over?
Mm.
And I think, I've worked in an online environment for probably over 12 years now.
Mm.
And so I trusted a lot, and I really made the shift in my own mind to be able to, how do you really help people
Mm.
with this methodology of teaching? Online training is not everything. It's obviously the moment that we're all able to be with each other again and hug each other tight will be wonderful,
Mm.
and to to be playful in that way. But this is like just such a new, rich environment of how many different ways can we take something that
Mm.
can be very boring, and
Mhm.
online learning can be phenomenally boring, or I
Yeah.
get to, in my courses, to be able to establish some different ways of being really creative. There's so many creative ways to really
Mm.
have learning come alive in an online environment, and I get to do that in my,
Yeah.
it's like, it's one of those, like, the Coast Guard didn't want me, so I'm gonna go, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna go into the army instead. I get to serve that way. So there it is. I honor, I work for an organization, and that's the way they want to do it, and you have to honor that. But it's, that's not serving me and my creative juices. So so that I get to create it. So that's what the academy is. The academy, the Conscious Center Academy,
Mm.
is that place.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So yeah, so that's it. And I think the seven inside of me
Mm.
is, okay to not have everything be perfect when you begin.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, start where you are,
Yeah.
and the immature seven, though, have to have everything in a row.
Mm. More
And I
perfectionist.
think I think it was more about, like, if I didn't have everything perfect,
Mm.
that I was afraid that people wouldn't, I wasn't able to communicate effectively, or to be able to transfer the knowledge
Yeah.
efficiently and effectively. But I
Yeah.
think now that I've matured in
Mm.
my profession, I certainly have found ways to be able to speak to all different ways of learning, so
Mm.
that different people with different learning styles are able to get something from the program. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, just appreciate so much your presence and your love and your joy, and it's just been just awesome to talk with you. And I'm really excited to be able to share this with people, because it's yeah, you just captured so many beautiful aspects of the seven, and it's just such a pleasure to see where your flowering has occurred, and just how beautiful that is. So
it's
um,
forever unfolding, as you can see.
it's limitless, isn't it? There's no lid on it. It's like, here I come, Cosmos, with
you
a
you
body or
bet.
not, I'm coming. So
You bet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop here, but don't go away. I just want
Okay.
to again, much gratitude to you and much love. And
You bet.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So